On certain December nights, a village appears where no village should exist. Uncharted, unseen, and unforgiving. Those who enter are never the same, if they return at all. The cursed village that only appears in December nights is a chilling African folktale of forgotten sins, ancestral debts, and a road that remembers every traveler who dares to walk it. As one man searches for the truth, he uncovers a terrifying secret that binds the living to the past, and a choice that will decide whether the curse ends or begins again. Listen closely, because some stories are not meant to be forgotten. They say December nights are not meant for travel. In the old parts of the land, when the harmattan wind lowers its voice and the moon hangs like a watching eye, elders lock their doors early. Fires are kept small. Children are called indoors before sunset. Not because of animals or thieves, but because some roads remember things they should not. Daniel Moore heard this warning for the first time on a warm December evening, sitting on a wooden bench outside a roadside bar. The red dust clung to his shoes, and the air smelled of palm wine and smoke. He had been asking questions all day. Too many questions, according to the locals. December nights hide villages, the old man beside him said quietly, not looking at Daniel. Villages that do not forgive. Daniel smiled politely, the way journalists do when they hear something they plan to write down but not believe. He had come from far away, chasing a story about disappearances, men and women who left home in December and were never seen again. No bodies, no records, just silence. Folktales always grew around silence. What village? Daniel asked. The old man finally turned. His eyes were cloudy but sharp. The one that is not there in the morning. Daniel laughed softly. Villages don't just disappear. The man stood up, slow and stiff. That is why you should not go looking. That night, Daniel checked into a small guest house at the edge of town. Power flickered. His phone signal was weak. Still, he felt the familiar pull of a story that refused to stay buried. He reviewed his notes, dates, names, places. Every disappearance shared one detail. December. Always December. Just after sunset, Daniel stepped outside. The town was quieter than before, as if sound itself had been warned. No music, no laughter, only the wind brushing dry leaves across the road. He noticed something strange then, a narrow dirt path branching off from the main road. He was sure it had not been there earlier. The path was darker than the rest of the land, as though the moonlight avoided it. Daniel hesitated. He told himself it was fatigue, or imagination fed by stories and palm wine. Still, his feet moved forward. Gravel crunched softly beneath his shoes as he followed the path. With every step, the air grew colder, heavier. His phone vibrated. No signal. After several minutes, the trees opened. A village stood before him. Mud houses with thatched roofs lined a wide clearing. Small fires burned without smoke. The buildings looked old, older than the land around them, but carefully kept as if time had learned to pause here. No insects buzzed. No dogs barked. The silence was complete. Daniel turned back. The road was gone. In its place stood thick forest, untouched, ancient. His breath caught in his throat. Panic rose, but he forced it down. He was not a child. He was not lost, just temporarily confused. A voice broke the silence. You came late. Daniel spun around. A tall man stood at the edge of the village, holding a wooden staff. His clothes were simple. His face was calm, unreadable. I'm looking for the road, Daniel said. The man nodded slowly. Everyone is. What is this place? Daniel asked. The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You may call it a village. Does it have a name? Yes, the man replied. But names are heavy. You should rest first. Daniel felt a strange pull toward the village, as if it were breathing him in. Against every instinct he stepped forward. What's your name? He asked. Samuel Reed, the man said. I watch the gate. Daniel frowned. Gate. Samuel tapped his staff lightly against the ground. December opens many things. As Daniel walked deeper into the village, he noticed people watching from doorways. Men, women, children. Their eyes followed him with a quiet hunger, as if they recognized him. A sudden chill ran through his body. His phone buzzed again. This time the screen lit up. The date read, December 12. Not this year. 10 years ago. Daniel's heart pounded as the fires flickered, and somewhere deep within the village, something old stirred awake, aware that the road had claimed another traveler. Daniel did not sleep. The room he was given was small, built of clay walls that smelled faintly of earth and ash. A single oil lamp burned on a wooden table. Its flame. Daniel did not sleep. The room he was given was small, built of clay walls that smelled faintly of earth and ash. A single oil lamp burned on a wooden table, its flame steady, untouched by wind. Outside, the village remained unnaturally quiet, yet Daniel sensed movement. Slow, patient movement, like a living thing shifting its weight. The village was awake. He sat on the edge of the bed, listening. No footsteps, no voices. Still, the silence pressed against his ears until it felt louder than noise. When he closed his eyes, images crept in. The disappearing road, the frozen moonlight, Samuel Reed's calm smile. December opens many things. At dawn, if dawn could truly exist here, Daniel stepped outside. The sky was gray, neither night nor morning. Fires still burned in the open, unchanged, as if time had failed to move forward. Villagers were already at work, sweeping paths, tending small gardens, carrying water from a well that reflected no sky. They moved with purpose but without urgency, repeating motions that felt rehearsed. "Good morning," Daniel said to a woman passing by. She stopped. Her eyes met his, and for a moment something flickered there, surprise or fear. Then it vanished. "Good evening," she replied and walked on. Daniel frowned. He wandered deeper into the village, counting steps, noticing patterns. The same man passed him twice, carrying the same basket. A child dropped a calabash, watched it crack, then walked away without reaction. Minutes later, Daniel saw the same calabash whole again, sitting beside the same child. The village was not just quiet. It was repeating. "You are observing too loudly." Daniel turned. A woman stood behind him, her presence gentle but sudden. She wore a simple dress, neatly pressed, and held a book close to her chest. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone." She studied him carefully. "You are not from here." "No," he said. "I'm Daniel. Evelyn Carter," she replied. "You should not walk alone." "Why?" She glanced around before answering. "Because the village listens." They walked together. Evelyn explained that she taught the children, what little there was to teach when days did not move forward. Her voice was calm, practiced, but her fingers gripped the book too tightly. "How long have you lived here?" Daniel asked. Evelyn hesitated. "Long enough to forget the outside." "Can people leave?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Some do." Daniel stopped walking. "Some." She met his gaze. "Others stay." They reached the center of the village, a wide open space marked by a stone circle blackened by old fire. Symbols were carved into the stones, worn smooth by countless hands. "This is where we gather at night," Evelyn said. "When December is strongest." "Why December?" Daniel asked. Evelyn did not answer. That night the village changed. As darkness settled, the air thickened. Fires burned brighter, casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally along the ground. Villagers emerged from their homes, forming a silent circle around the stones. No one spoke. No one smiled. Daniel stood at the edge, his heart pounding. Margaret Bell stepped forward. She was older than anyone else, her back bent but her eyes sharp and unafraid. When she spoke, her voice carried without effort. "Another one has come," she said, looking directly at Daniel. "The village remembers you." Daniel shook his head. "I've never been here." Margaret smiled sadly. "No one ever remembers the first time." She raised a hand, and the villagers began to hum, a low, steady sound that vibrated through the ground. Images flooded Daniel's mind. Faces he recognized but could not place, footsteps on a road at night, firelight reflecting off blood-dark earth. "You do not belong to this month," Margaret continued. "Yet December claims those who walk its roads. What do you want from me?" Daniel asked. Margaret's gaze softened. "Balance." The humming stopped. Margaret leaned closer. "Every December, the village must replace what it loses." Daniel felt cold spread through his chest. "Replace what?" She stepped back into the circle. "Those who leave," she said, "are replaced by those who arrive." Daniel turned to Evelyn, his voice barely steady. "Is that true?" Her eyes filled with tears she did not let fall. "I tried to leave once," she whispered. "The village brought someone else instead." The fires flared suddenly, and Daniel understood with terrifying clarity. This village did not trap people, traded them. And somewhere beyond the forest, a life had vanished so he could stand here now. The village did not sleep after the gathering. The humming faded, but its echo lingered in Daniel's bones, as if the sound had settled inside him. He followed Evelyn back to her house, neither of them speaking. The air felt heavier now, charged with something restless, like a storm that refused to break. Inside, Evelyn lit a lamp and sat across from him. "You should know the truth before December ends," she said quietly. "After that, it may be too late." Daniel nodded. His throat felt dry. "Tell me everything." Evelyn took a deep breath. "Long ago, before maps and borders, this land belonged to a small community. They lived well, but fear lived with them. Droughts came. Sickness followed. Strangers passed through and never stayed. Until one December," Daniel said. "Yes," she replied. "A group of travelers arrived at night. The elders believed the ancestors had sent them as a test, or an offering. The strangers were not welcomed. They were bound, taken to the fire circle, and killed." Daniel felt his stomach turn. "The land flourished after that," Evelyn continued. "The elders believed the blood had paid a debt. So every December when fear returned, they repeated it." "And the curse?" Daniel asked. "The ancestors do not forget," she said. "The village was pulled out of time, trapped between nights. Now it can only exist when the debt is remembered." Daniel stood and paced the room. "That was generations ago. Why does it still continue?" "Because no one stayed behind willingly," Evelyn said. "Every sacrifice fought. Everyone tried to escape." A knock came at the door. Samuel Reed entered without waiting for permission. His presence filled the room, calm and commanding. "It is time," he said. "The fire remembers." They followed him into the forest beyond the village. The trees parted to reveal a pit surrounded by stone, older than the village itself. Ash coated the ground. Margaret Bell stood there waiting. "You carry the weight of old blood," she told Daniel. "Your family name is not unfamiliar." Daniel froze. "That's impossible." Margaret gestured toward the pit. Flames erupted without fuel, casting visions into the air. Men shouting, ropes tightening, a face that looked painfully familiar. Daniel staggered back. "My ancestor," he whispered. "Yes," Margaret said. "He helped seal the curse. He wrote the rules." Daniel remembered his grandfather's stories. Unfinished, filled with silence. "Why bring me here?" Daniel demanded. "Why now?" "Because the village is weakening," Samuel said. "December ends soon. The cycle must be closed or renewed." Evelyn stepped forward. "There is another way." Margaret nodded. "Someone must stay, not as a prisoner but as a guardian. A willing soul." Daniel understood then. "If I stay," he said slowly, "the village ends." "It will fade," Margaret said. "The debt will be held, not traded." Silence fell. Daniel thought of the road, the missing, the years stolen. He thought of Evelyn, trapped between nights. "I'll do it," he said. Evelyn grabbed his arm. "No." Daniel met her eyes. Someone has to remember. The fire flared higher, and for the first time the village trembled, like a living thing facing its final breath. The night of December 31st arrived without warning. There was no sunset, no gradual deepening of shadows. One moment the sky above Ebon Hollow was a dull gray, the next it darkened into a deep, watchful black. The moon hung low and red, heavier than Daniel had ever seen it, as if it too felt the weight of what was about to end. The village gathered one final time at the fire circle. No humming rose from the people this night. No ritual chant followed. Instead there was silence, thick, respectful, afraid. The fires burned low, their light flickering across faces worn by years that never moved forward. Daniel stood at the center. He felt strangely calm. Evelyn stood beside him, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She had not spoken since the decision, but her eyes followed him constantly, as if trying to memorize his face. Margaret Bell raised her staff. "The village has eaten enough years," she said. "Tonight the debt is held, not passed." Samuel Reed stepped forward last. "For centuries," he said, "I have watched the gate. I was once a traveler too. December claimed me when the curse was young." Daniel looked at him in shock. Samuel nodded. "I stayed so others could leave. But one guardian is not enough when guilt is shared." The fire responded, rising higher without heat. Shapes moved within it. Roads, faces, footsteps walking away into darkness. Margaret turned to Daniel. "If you cross into the fire willingly, the village will release the trapped lives. But you will remain between nights." Daniel inhaled deeply. He thought of the outside world, of noise, time, and unfinished stories. He thought of the road that should not exist, and of all the people who had walked it unknowingly. "I'm ready," he said. Evelyn broke then. "Let me stay too." Margaret shook her head. "Only one is needed." Daniel turned to Evelyn. "Live," he said gently. "Tell the story." Tears streamed freely now, but Evelyn nodded. Daniel stepped forward. The fire did not burn. It wrapped around him like memory. Warm, heavy, final. The ground beneath the village shook. Houses cracked and faded. The trees groaned as if exhaling after centuries of holding their breath. Samuel smiled, peaceful at last, and faded into ash. Margaret lowered her staff. "It is done." Light burst across the clearing. When Evelyn opened her eyes, the village was gone. She stood alone on a dirt road at dawn, birds singing loudly as if they had been waiting years to speak. The air smelled fresh, untouched by ash or smoke. No houses, no fires, no stones, only forest. Years passed. Evelyn became a teacher again, this time in a real town that lived in daylight. Every December, she told her students a story, not as a warning but as remembrance. They laughed sometimes. They doubted. But on certain December nights, when the harmattan wind lowered its voice, Evelyn would stand at her window and watch the trees. And once, only once, she saw a narrow dirt road appear between them. At its edge stood a man, calm and still, watching the gate. December remembered. And so did he.